Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson is a show about the journey of motherhood. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
If you've been listening, you know that I am pregnant and the countdown has begun. I'm due in about 2 weeks, and I wanted to bring on the show with me my good friend and now doula, Ashley Minahan, because Ashley is going to be working with me during my birth, and she has been working with me up until this point so far. And for many women, I think they don't necessarily know what a doula's role is or what they might do and how they can really enhance a birth experience. So Ashley has been working with families for 17 years. She started working when her oldest son was born, and she became an active member of La Leche League and then began a support group for young moms. And throughout her career, she's worked with parents and their young children in many different capacities. Hi, Ashley. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So you have such a long background and a lot of certifications. So tell me a little bit more about what you focus on and how you help moms to be.
Sure. So like you said, I've been working with families for about 18 years in all different roles. And what I have really learned in my career is that I really like help supporting people. I really like working with parents as they go down their journey. And I've always really loved birth as well. And then I sort of put the two and two together and became a doula a couple of years ago because I'm able to take my love of working with families and sort of helping them through transitional times and combining it in something that I absolutely love, which is working with new parents in birth.
Which is great. And I have to tell you that from my experience giving birth the first time I worked with a doula, and I credit her with getting me through the birth, through the labor, and giving me the type of birth that I was really hoping for. Now, granted, circumstances come up and that isn't always the case and it's out of everybody's control, but I feel a doula can really help with that labor process.
Well, and it can also be really nice to have somebody with you the whole time, even if your plan does change, because sometimes the plan doesn't go exactly as you hoped, but having somebody with you who you really have a connection to and who you've gotten to know during your pregnancy can be really helpful. So we can be there to sort of support your ideal birth like your first doula did, or sort of help you if the plan has to change a little bit, sort of come to terms with that.
Right, exactly. Because your role as a doula is one of emotional support, which I feel starts even before your labor begins. You meet with people beforehand, you get to know them, you get to hear what's happening in their lives.
The relationship that we develop, that doulas develop with our clients is so important because we are your person. We're hopefully there to sort of know in the moment sort of what you need before you can even articulate it. And that only happens when you have a bond with somebody.
Right. And so now, in addition to the emotional support, there are so many techniques that you use to help a mom through her pregnancy and the labor, but also things that you teach a mom to help maybe get the baby in the right position. Tell me a little bit about those.
Right. So I use spinning babies. Spinning babies is an approach to optimize the fetal positioning for moms while they're pregnant, as well as prepare the mother's body for a more comfortable pregnancy, as well as ease in childbirth. So there's certain things that you do during your pregnancy to really add balance to the mother's body and to make the most space for the baby by doing certain exercises called the Three Sisters of Balance. And then that can really usually ease some of the normal pregnancy, discomforts that people have by really preparing the pelvic floor and stretching out all of the tight ligaments in the pelvis.
Right. And I think spinning babies is so great because not only, like you said, does it help prepare, but if there's a baby that might be breech or not in the most ideal position, it makes that space, like you said, for them.
Exactly. And then we can also use it during the birth to help open the pelvis and invite the baby to come down depending on where the baby is. So I really use it during births as a problem-solving technique to sort of, figure out what's going on depending on where the mom is having pain or if the baby is maybe not in the best position, and figure out how I can open the pelvis in a certain, direction for the baby to sort of get into where the baby needs to be to come out. So it's helpful during pregnancy, but it's also really helpful during labor and delivery too.
Yeah. And I love that the exercises are so simple. It's three main exercises that you do each night, one maybe for 30 seconds. And then, you could finish it all in 5 to 10 minutes. So it's something that's easily doable and can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And it does. I mean, the research really shows that spinning babies does make a difference. People have great experiences with it. And I can tell you, just since I've started using it in my practice, I can, I'm definitely not evidence-based, but I can tell you in my experience, it does make a difference if people really commit to doing them.
Right. Exactly. And what else do you do with clients?
So I also use a rebozo. That's probably one of my most favorite things that I do. A rebozo is a traditional Mexican scarf that's been used by midwives in Mexico for years to bring comfort and relaxation to pregnancy and labor. So I use it in a particular way to really help keep the mom and her birthing partner connected, as well as to offer a real hands-on way for the partner to help her manage her labor. I find that a lot of times partners really want to help. They really want to be involved, but they just have no idea what to do to sort of help her through it. But with the rebozo, I can teach them things that they can actually do to physically hands-on help. And then they feel like they're staying involved. Partners really want to help during labor. They just have no idea what to do. So kind of teaching moves with the rebozo gives them something hands-on to actually work on.
Right. Now, what if you have a partner who maybe wants to help, maybe is like, you know what, I don't need to help. I'll just sit over here and hold my wife's hand, and that's good enough for me. What do you do with that if you're working with a couple in that situation?
So I think that's also totally fine. That goes into building the relationship with people. I really find out what their birth goals are. And if it is most helpful for the dad or the partner to just sort of be off to the side watching, and that's what works for the family, then I am there to support that as well. I don't go into any birth with my own agenda. I make sure that I'm meeting the needs of the clients that I'm working with. So if somebody's partner really doesn't want to be involved and that's what's best for them, then that's fine. I can totally do all of the things. But if they do, then I want to give them some hands-on tangible things so they can be involved.
Right. Which is great. And I think it's really nice. And I've heard that, even partners who might not feel a close connection before the labor process and the birth, once the partner sees what the person giving birth is going through, it kind of brings on a whole new respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think birth really has the power to sort of change, some of the dynamics in a relationship, because it's very raw and intimate, and it brings people kind of to our core.
Yeah, that's for sure. So where can people go if they want to get information on you? I know you're based in Connecticut and you serve pretty much the entire region of Connecticut. Where else do you serve, and what kind of services could you provide?
Yep. So I'm all over Connecticut. I will pretty much travel anywhere in Connecticut. My website is beginwithashley.com. People can find out about me there. I have also provided virtual doula services for people. So I have had calls from all over the place who just want some information or to help be connected to a doula in their area. I can, I'm part of a big group of other doulas who do spinning baby things, so I can sort of refer them to somebody. And sometimes people just really want either a virtual class or just to have somebody with them through the process, but not actually physically there because we live too far away. So I can do things like FaceTime with people or just answer questions via text or email. That can also be very helpful for people.
Absolutely. So one last question. So if somebody's going to a midwife, what would you tell them is the difference? If someone says, well, I have a midwife, I don't need a doula, what would you say are the differences?
Yeah, I actually hear that a lot. And so midwives and doulas are very, very different. They actually complement each other very well. A midwife is a medical provider who's going to be providing the care to you and your baby, and a doula is not a medical provider. So if somebody's having a hospital birth, a midwife is not going to go hang out with them at home and labor with them at home for, a number of hours. Or even if they're having a home birth, a midwife is generally not going to be there until, you're in active labor or getting ready to push. But a doula is sort of there with you throughout the whole entire process. It's really more like a labor BFF through the process than a midwife is sort of the medical provider.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the first time around, my midwife was awesome. And I hear the midwife I'm with now is going to be awesome, according to what everybody says. But you're right. They have a limited role and they're
Yep.
great for when they're needed and when it's time to push and maybe,
Yep.
obviously a little bit before. But really, it is the doula who I thank so much for, again, the birth that I had the first time. And I know no matter what happens this time, we will work together. And I'm comforted to know that you're here for me and you're my support no matter what. And it's somebody who can help and guide before your birth to answer any questions, as well as after your birth too. I think a lot of women have a ton of questions, especially first-time moms. Everything
Absolutely.
from breastfeeding to, a million different things. And you're also a lactation counselor. That's a terrific person to have by your side. Ashley Minahan, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to working very intimately with you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson.
Moving is not easy. I've never talked to one person who had a wonderful move and enjoyed moving and enjoyed the packing process and managing the movers and settling into a new home. It is definitely one of life's most stressful events. And in the past, I have not had wonderful moving experiences until I found New York Nomads. They were recommended to me by another mom in a mom's group on Facebook, and I was thrilled that I found them. They are a family-owned and operated moving company servicing mainly New York and the tri-state area. They believe the corporate nature of the moving industry takes all the fun out of moving. And they say moving means an exciting new start, and they believe that it should be a friendly, pleasant, and easygoing experience that they strive to provide the same quality of care that they would like to see with their own family. So like most New Yorkers, they do their best. So like most New Yorkers, they do best what they know best. They keep moving. Call or email them today for a free in-house estimate or online quote. It's www.nynomadsmoving.com or info@nynomadsmoving.com. You can also reach them 929-339-6670. That's 929-339-6670. Their customer service is impeccable and they will get right back to you same day.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson is a show about the journey of motherhood. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
Always thrilled to have on the show with me my good friend Marshall Stevenson. He is a dad and comic in New York City. And there's always so many topics that come up because he has a daughter around the same age as my daughter. She's a few months older. And so I love talking to him and bouncing different things off of him as far as what's going on in our lives. And I thought it was funny, Marshall, a few weeks ago, you talked about the ants that you had in your house. And we just moved into a new home and I have spotted some ants. And with one on the way and my daughter playing with all of her stuff and the ants crawling among all of her stuff, I freak out and I think, gosh, I have to vacuum, clean. And it just never seems to be enough cleaning.
No, you got it all wrong. And now this is like, we talk about, you believe that the climate is actually changing, right? You're not a climate change denier, right?
No.
I'm going in a serious way. This is just go with me here. You believe the climate is changing, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, evidence has come out time and time again from respected researchers, from medical journals, that the reason we had an allergy and asthma spike in the last 30 years is because environments were too clean. The fact that we're training our immune systems to not be able to be immune to anything. Kids on farms do better than kids in cities. These kids are unhealthy because they're not exposed to germs. And all this mountain of science, this wave of science, sorry to mix metaphors, is telling us, let the ants be. This is actually good for newborn kids. The reason that they put their hands in their mouth is so nature is introducing them to the certain germs and bacteria that their bodies are going to learn to fight off. Don't vacuum crazy.
But then when they end up in the hospital with these crazy viruses or 103 fevers, I feel like they just tell us this type of stuff just so that it makes us feel better when they come out with everything under the sun, from foot to mouth and pneumonia and the flu and everything else that we don't really want to be dealing with our poor little newborns.
Not only are those rare situations, and you obviously have to behave different when there's actually an outbreak. I mean, if there was like a really vicious outbreak around, you'd have to behave much differently. But the more germs, this is the latest research, that they're exposed to in the first year, the better chance they will have to fend off those more serious germs when they're exposed to them. So I actually have an allergist friend who I went to college with. He did well. He went to a good medical school. He's been practicing for 25 years, which gives you an indication of how old I am. But he said it took us 30 years to try to train people out of giving their kids peanut butter. And now everybody's got peanut butter allergies, and we have to train them to early exposure. Now, peanuts are not toxins. Obviously, peanuts in your house is not like ants in your house. But this is early exposure to things is what protects them later. And you become so obsessive about cleaning the house, this hurts the kid. I'm telling you. It's like climate change.
Okay, great.
denial.
So I should just let the ants crawl around and not worry about it.
Only
and so
for the
when they
first
keep
year.
breeding.
Only for the first year.
Only the first year. Okay, so
see, I don't know practically how to deal with that because, yeah, obviously you don't want ants in your house. I mean, I'm not an idiot, but the point is that we spend our time keeping the place clean, antibacterial soaps, roach sprays. These are the things that hurt the kids. And they say dirt. Kids who grow up. Okay, here were some of the findings. Kids who grow up with dogs are healthier, but only if the dogs go outside. If the dogs only stay in the house, there's no benefit, which means it's not about their fur, it's about what they track in.
Right. I hear it. So let me ask you this, because this is a hot topic right now with the whole measles outbreaks in different regions of the country. Are you a believer in not vaccinating and letting your kids be exposed to the measles to build their immune system?
No, that's ridiculous.
Right.
That's ridiculous. Okay. And by the way, if you think of a vaccine conceptually, the vaccine is doing exactly what exposing your kids to germs does too. The vaccine has a small bit of measles virus that introduced to their body, they build up immunity to the measles. So no, anybody who doesn't vaccinate their kid is a moron.
Right. And I agree with you on that. And I have read so many message boards, and I had somebody who was in a birthing class of mine who was anti-vaccine. And I, as natural as I like to go, that is one thing that I will not compromise on. And I don't think it's fair that these kids who are not getting vaccinated are let into schools possibly, or maybe into certain community play areas where they don't ask for a medical history. And it really is compromising everybody as a whole. So Marshall, I want to talk to you about this a little more coming up later in the show. We're going to do a double header with Marshall today. And we also have some other topics we're going to talk about, such as if you are a stay-at-home parent and the other person is out working and thinks that you have all this free time in the world to do whatever you want during the day. Is this a debate that you have with your partner? Because I have to say that it has come up in my household, and especially lately when we decided to enroll our daughter in part-time daycare, and it just sends me over the top. So we're going to talk to Marshall a little bit later in the show. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Shay Wardell. She is a birth photographer, all about the wonders of the birthing experience and how she can capture it for you. More coming up in a few.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson. Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson is a show about the journey of motherhood. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
You heard me speaking with Ashley Minahan earlier about the role of a doula when it comes to your labor and birth and everything before and after. Well, it is such a intense process, but also one that is full of emotion. And for that, I wanted to have on the line with me Shay Wardell, because she is a birth photographer. And I feel like people think about newborn photo shoots and they might think about maternity photo shoots. But how many of you have thought about having a birth photographer in the hospital room with you, either before or after the actual delivery, or maybe even during? I know it's not for everyone, but I did want to have her on because she has been photographing births for the past 5 years, and she's fallen in love with the raw emotions that they show it as each moment unfolds. Hi, Shay.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So tell me a little bit about why you got into this type of photography.
It actually was a very unique journey. I have always really been interested in the birth field ever since I was a little girl. My grandparents actually raised me, and my grandmother would find me like when I was 8 years old watching birth documentaries and things like that and being like, what are you watching? But I was just so fascinated on it. And I always thought I would go into a medical role with that, but I just could not get the science and math to like dedicate that time to schooling. And I loved photography, and I just knew that was passion. And I had a friend's mom, she was pregnant, and she was like, hey, I would love to have a birth photographer present. Have you ever thought about doing something like that? And I was like, wow, that sounds really cool. So I ended up not doing her birth, but I did another friend's birth, and it was just life-changing. I knew right then and there that that was what I was supposed to be doing, and it was something totally outside the realm. Something true and vulnerable and just very true to a family, and like celebrating that season for them. You know, when they're having a baby, it's really like you're turning a page on another chapter and starting a new family member, and the family is the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, it really is. And we met today and we chatted a bit, and just the way that you talked about it, you can tell that you're so much more than just somebody who shows up with a camera, that you really just get into the births and you feel them as though you're going through it each time, just the emotion of it all.
Yeah, it's like definitely one of my favorite things to capture. One of my friends who's also a photographer, she focuses on celebrating the honesty of motherhood, and she also does birth photography. And she was just asking me, you know, like, what's your why when it comes to what you do? And it really made me think about it. And I'm like, and the last 5 years, out of all the different genres that I focus on, birth is the one that will move me to tears every time. And they're just tears of joy because I know that these are so meaningful for that family. And it is such a special moment to be invited into.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. If somebody says to you, hey, why should I hire a professional birth photographer when my partner can just take photos, or another support person in the room, what would you tell them?
My answer is very simple. This is just as much about the dad or your partner as it is about the mother in labor and having the baby. You know, yes, she's done the work for 9 months of growing this human and sacrificing her body and now going through that labor and delivery to bring them earthside. But they've been waiting just as eagerly to meet this baby too. And I believe that they should be in that moment, with their partner, helping them through the labor and delivery and enjoying watching their baby enter this world versus spending that moment watching it through a lens. You know, they shouldn't be focused on capturing those moments. They should be enjoying them as they unfold.
Exactly. And I also feel that I know from my first birth, my husband was right next to me holding my hand or, telling me, breathe, go, whatever support he was giving. And I think that was very necessary. And if he was just focused on taking pictures, I would have missed out as well on the support that I needed.
Yeah. And I also feel like these photos are just important. You know, I have moms who have come to me years after their birth telling me how much these meant. You know, sometimes moms have struggled in the past with their previous birth experiences, and this was a very healing process for them. And then you're so in the moment about getting this baby out of you that you don't think about what's going on around you. So when you're able to stop and reflect a few weeks later and see these images, you're like, wow, I didn't even realize this was happening or that. And wow, that's so beautiful. I was so strong in that moment. It really helps them own their birth experience and feel powerful and like the goddess that they are. I mean, they just birthed the baby.
Yeah, exactly. I know that's how I felt the first time I had my mom there, and she took some pictures. And I was so thankful because, again, while I was going through it, I couldn't even bring myself to look in the mirror that they hold in front of you. I was just like focused on pushing and getting this baby out. But I think some people might be skittish on bringing somebody else into the room with them. But I personally, after seeing what it was like the first time, you just kind of forget who's there when you're in the moment of labor. But I know, again, it's not for everyone. So if somebody said to you, I don't know how I feel about having this person, I don't really know in the room with me, what would you tell them?
So when it comes to booking a birth with me, they inquire and then it's automatically a phone call. And that is the start of our relationship, is just a genuine phone call to get to know them and make sure that we're connecting before we move forward and that I'm going to be the right fit. And then from there, we could do an in-person consultation with both mom and partner if they're both available, or just mom, whatever. And we talk about all of their questions and concerns and their fears, and we really start building that foundation of the relationship. That way, when it comes time to call me and say, hey, I'm ready for you to come, I'm in labor, it's not you worrying about meeting another stranger in your support room and in the delivery room. It's, this is a friendly face. I know that she is kind and caring and going to be here to support me and capture this beautifully.
Right, exactly, which I think is so important. So when do you generally arrive to a birth?
I generally arrive around 5-6 centimeters around the time active labor has started. However, depending on previous birth experiences and so forth, sometimes I will arrive earlier. A lot of times if we're doing a home birth or mom knows that she really wants to spend time laboring at home and would like some of those moments captured, I will say, hey, don't worry about that. Just give me a call and I'll head over and I'll, capture part of that. And then if you want me to go home for a little bit before you head to your birthing destination, then that's fine too. Or I can stay and follow you, whatever you'd like.
Right, which is really nice to get those pictures before and after as well, because I think when the partner is with the mom through the whole labor process, whether it is active labor or the beginnings of labor, those can be really special moments.
They are. I actually have a lot of the partners come to me. We do the final session where I come to them about a month after their birth and I play a slideshow of their best images so that they can kind of watch their birth unfold through the lens. And then I kind of hand off their whole gallery of digital so that they can see all of them, even the ones that weren't in that video. And a lot of times upon watching that, they look at me with tears in their eyes because they can't believe the, not only their strength and the support that they had from, their nurses or doulas or moms and dads and all of that, but they look at me and they're like, wow, this love that we have is amazing. Like the way he looks at our baby for the first time, the way that he held me in that moment when I just needed him, it really does add up.
Yeah, it sure does. So have you ever gotten any pushback from a hospital when going to photograph a birth? Because I know that the two hospitals one that I gave birth in and one that I'm giving birth in, they both had rules of no photos or videos. It didn't stop us the first time and nobody said anything. And I'm hoping the same goes for this time. But has anybody ever said anything to you?
I actually feel like there is always a lot of pushback from the hospitals. There's always that rule about, no cameras or anything like that in the delivery room, which is understandable. However, I find that even with that being a standard policy in most places, I have my clients just talk to their doctor ahead of time and say, hey, I'm really hoping to have a birth photographer present to photograph my labor and delivery. What are your thoughts on that? Is this something that we can work with? I always tell them that their physician is able to call me and ask any questions or set up a meeting with me in person if they'd like. I don't use flash during my birth photography, especially in the hospital setting, so that it's not distracting towards the doctors and physicians or the laboring moms. Some, like to be in that dark environment and a flashing light in their face for hours at a time probably isn't the most relaxing thing. So that's a way that we can work around that as well. And of course, when I show up to the hospital, I'm very respectful to any of the staff on duty. I say, hey, I'm here for so-and-so's birth. I'm going to be capturing it in a very modest and elegant way. You might be in some of these images. However, if you don't, I'm happy to work from angles and crop you out of any of the final images so that you're not a part of them. most of the time, everybody is super welcoming of it as far as staff goes that I encountered during labor and delivery, and I haven't had too much pushback. I actually did have one birth that ended up having to be a C-section, and her doctor was so amazing that day, worked against hospital policy to be able to have me in the OR. We were just very limited on what we could do.
Right, right. And that is special because I think a mom, no matter what type of birth she has, should be able to have it documented if she'd like, because it is special whether it's a C-section or a natural, or, well, all births are natural, or just, a vaginal birth.
Yeah. Or, there's also the occasions where a surrogacy is happening and maybe a family can't be there because they're out of the country or in another state, or just they're not arriving on time because they're farther out, or same thing with adoptions. So sometimes that is such a special moment because they've just been waiting so long to be able to have this child that they want that documented, and to be able to tell their child's birth story as is, like, hey, this was how you got to us and we got to be your parents. So
right.
It really is a very special time.
Absolutely. So where can people go to find out more information about your work, how they can reach out to you, where you travel to?
They can go to our website, www.sterlingphotographyct.com. On there, it has all the common question and answers. In case we missed anything in here that someone might have a question for, they can see our portfolio for our birth work and all of our other work, as well as submit a form to ask any questions or meet with me. I travel all over Connecticut and New England, and even beyond. If someone wants to invest in a birth photographer in another state, I'm willing to travel, although that does get a little complicated as we have to be down there in advance. And then there's always the option of referring someone. Like, if you want a birth photographer, but I'm way too far out of your area, I'm always happy to help you find the right match for you as well.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Shay Wardell, for joining me today from Sterling Photography. I saw your work. It's gorgeous. I enjoyed talking with you today, and I'm looking forward to working with you and having you capture the beautiful moments that is a birth, because for most of us, we're not going to have many of them in our lives. So I think it's a really important moment to capture with you and your partner.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson. Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson is a show about the journey of motherhood. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. Thanks so much for joining me today. We talk a lot about traveling, but one thing we don't talk about is the types of traveling that we do, especially with little kids. And for that, today I have with me John Leonardo. He is the manager for PETA. John, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. So tell me, I know people hear PETA and they know basics of what the organization is, but tell me a little bit more about just what PETA does.
Sure. PETA stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. We are the largest animal rights organization in the world. We oppose animals used for animal experimentation, for the food industry, for entertainment, and in the clothing industry. So we've become one of the foremost voices for animals, and we're really grateful to be on your show today and be able to speak to your listeners about these important issues.
Yes, I'm really glad that you're on with us today, because one thing that I know, when people do travel, a lot of times they do the excursions, like they swim with the dolphins and they will, look at the whales, and there's all these different things that you can do with animals, which are so much fun. But what are some things that people really need to consider? Because I know if we're going and we're doing these activities, it's because we love the animals. But I feel like there are some things that people just aren't aware of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we know travelers love animals. I mean, and who hasn't at some point or another wanted to get up close to a tiger, an elephant, or swim with a dolphin? But getting close up in rides, photo ops, and other encounters is highly stressful for wild animals. The good news is there are many animal-friendly activities one can choose instead, such as observing animals in their natural homes, or at nature preserves, or visiting reputable sanctuaries, both of which allow visitors to enjoy seeing animals without harassment or intrusion.
Right. So when somebody's visiting, how would we know if it is a sanctuary and not one that's just, say, calling itself a sanctuary, that they really are taking good care of these animals? I know when I was in Thailand, we went somewhere where we played with the elephants and we helped feed them and bathe them. And they assured us that they were taking real good care of the elephants. But how does one know?
Sure. Many scrupulous roadside zoos falsely present themselves as sanctuaries when they're anything but. True sanctuaries provide animals with lifelong homes, naturalistic habitats, and they never breed, buy, sell, or remove animals from their homes or habitats for photo ops or other displays. I mean, talking about elephants in Thailand, there are a lot of pseudo sanctuaries in Thailand where people go because they love these majestic animals, but the abuse they suffer is often hidden. In major tourist destinations like Thailand and India, baby elephants are taken from their mothers, tied down, and beaten so severely that they bleed and scream, all in order to force them to perform ridiculous tricks. I mean, we know that children have a natural love and affinity for animals. And if they knew about how these animals were suffering for these photo ops and these close encounters, they'd run kicking and screaming from these places.
Right.
Children can learn how to appreciate wild animals through books and videos that show animals in their natural habitats, or observing them on nature hikes, at the beach, or reputable animal sanctuaries that allow unobtrusive public visits.
Yeah, and so where can one go, or what can they look for in knowing that this is a true sanctuary or a place where you do want to take the children?
Yeah, I mean, for those who'd like some assistance ensuring they're booking humane vacations, animal-friendly travel companies are here to help. HumaneTrip.com has tour packages that range from sailing the Virgin Islands to exploring Egypt, or wonderful day trips to the Black Canyon on the Colorado River. And VegVoyages.com offers a 100% vegan vacation with minimal planning at off-the-beaten paths across Asia. PETA.org also offers a complete list of the best vegan travel companies and destinations right on our website.
That's great. And I love that there are vegan vacations because, obviously if you love animals so much, there are plenty of people who are vegans, and traveling can be difficult, especially on organized trips, because they're not taking that into consideration. So to know that you are going on a trip that's completely vegan and you don't have to worry about anything when it comes to food and the treatment of animals is terrific. John, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. That was very informative. And I have to say really quickly, I snuck a peek at your Facebook page, and I love the picture of you on the subway promoting veganism.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me today. You're listening to Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson. And don't forget, you can check out the website, passportmommy.com, if you are looking for destination ideas on where to go. And then you can check out PETA's website to figure out where you can take your littles to see the animals in a safe environment.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson